Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia SBDC's webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's webinar is Creating and Managing Online Forms and Surveys. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, web and mobile strategist, author of Solo Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategies Explained, and president of W3 Consulting, a digital business strategy and training firm. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here on the Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web series. As Tracy said, today we're going to be talking about creating and managing online forms and surveys. So just a couple of housekeeping items. One, if you have questions, this is the time to ask them. We're here live now so that you can do that. If you are watching the archive, the recorded version of this, on the final slide we'll have my email address, and you can feel free to email me with questions, but you can also tweet them at W3 Consulting, so follow W3 Consulting at W3 Consulting, hashtag that Beyond Google, and I'll be happy to answer those questions there. As well, follow at Virginia SBDC for future notifications regarding programs that they have going on, including these Marketing and Managing on the Web series, the Beyond Google series webinars. So go ahead and do that. And with that, let's get into the agenda for today. Finding information on the web is really difficult for small businesses, and many times that's not where the information actually, the information that you need, it really lives. It really lives in the hearts and minds of your consumers. And so creating surveys, creating forms so that you can collect data directly from the people who really matter is really important. And so that's what I really want to hone in on today as we go through not only the methodology of being able to create good forms and surveys, but also then collecting those in the right tools and then managing the data on the back end. So that's what we really want to cover today. I want to talk about some guidelines for creating web forms and surveys. I'm going to take you through some of the pieces of software that are available, which will be the bulk of today's discussion, and you can ask questions about how maybe some of those tools work. We'll go over the tools themselves, and then I want to go ahead and talk about managing that data on the back end. So once you've created those, now you have all this data that you've collected, or at least hopefully the right data that you've collected, and what do you do with that data? Okay. Of course, we'll have a little bit of time at the very end for question and answer, so we'll be able to do that. All right, so let's get into the topic of, what and how should you develop web forms and surveys. And first and foremost, note that I sort of lumped the two of them together because the idea here is for you to be able to ask the right questions, right? So let's just talk about sort of number one, the number one principle for creating any form or survey, which is to define your goal. So this is really, creating objectives for yourself for the various forms and surveys that you might be creating. So just right now, take a minute to, grab a piece of paper and pen and think about the various types of data that you might want to collect. And I'm going to give you just some examples of things that you might want to collect from your potential, current, and future clients using web technologies, using your website or using other kinds of tools, even an email to them where you're giving them a link to be able to take a survey, even sending them an email and asking them just to respond to it. That is a kind of survey, okay? So here goes a couple of options. A contact form on your website, an annual customer satisfaction survey. How would you like to, what would be the next product that you're looking to launch? And what exactly are the features that would be appropriate, or the service lines that would be appropriate to make your customers happy? Are you trying to collect market research for the launch of a business? And what data would you like to be collecting? What are the great business sort of conundrums that you have? And how could your customers, again, past or current, answer those great quandaries that you have about your business? Okay? At the end of the day, you may have really great ideas, but by and large, the answer to those questions lie in the buy-in that your potential current and past customers have, and you really need to unlock that data. Okay, you need to really unlock that information from them. Now you can collect that data over time through customer satisfaction surveys and other things, and you can also get that information prior to there being conundrums and problems by looking at the data over the life cycle of your business. So what I'd really like you to do if you're pre-startup or startup phase is to be collecting this data now so that you're capable of having foresight, preempting the struggles. If you're in your growth phase and you've been running your business for a while and you're a veteran business owner, then you should be looking at how you can use prior data but also collecting the current data from your customer base so that you can overcome potentially what challenges you feel you have and moving forward. Okay, so defining goals is really important here. Why are you collecting this data? Is there a specific problem you'd like to solve, or is there a future problem you would like to sort of understand or forecast? Is the market changing? And how would you like to be able to change with the cheese, move with the cheese, as Dr. Spencer Johnson says? Okay. Next up is really the crux of the most work when it comes to creating forms and surveys. I know most people think of going into the tool itself and actually manifesting the survey, but the reality is that this should be the bulk amount of your time. Is that once you've defined your objectives, once you know what those objectives are, really you need to go ahead and look at the outcomes. How would you like to see it at the end? What type of data would you like to see at the end? What do you have to ask in order to get the right information? Okay, so really think about the end and what it would look like. Is this going to be something that's going to be a report that you can read? Is this going to be a series of open-ended questions with paragraph-type responses? Are you going to ask a lot of closed-ended questions where people answer yes, no, very satisfied, satisfied, not satisfied? What are the things that you're going to be asking, and how are you going to be able to use that data in the long and over the course of the business's life cycle? And that's really important. If you can think about what the end looks like, it's really easy to start manifesting the starter points. Okay. Next up is probably one of the most difficult things then for business owners, unless you happen to be a lawyer and you're really good at cross-examination, or depositions, I suppose. But if you're not one of those, you really do have to spend some time understanding the makeup of questions. Okay, so in general, we have open-ended and closed-ended questions. And open-ended questions are questions that someone has the ability to answer without a yes or no, and non-multiple choice. So when you're asking questions, you have to really think about the other side to that coin, which is closed-ended questions, which is going to give you much more filterable and manipulable data. If you ask an open-ended question, which you're allowed to do, and I'm not against open-ended questions, but the point is that when you ask an open-ended question, you're going to get an open-ended answer, and sometimes you might get a more emotional answer as opposed to a more thoughtful answer. And that's just the way that the statistics sort of play out, but your mileage may vary. So you have to decide out the gate: am I going to ask a blend, open-ended and closed-ended questions, along with multiple choice questions? Am I going to have one question dictate whether another question is being asked or not? And are those questions biased? So question bias is the idea that you're going to lead someone to make an answer that they otherwise wouldn't have answered that way if it was asked in a more balanced perspective. So it would be like me saying to someone, wouldn't you like to eat my ice cream? You're saying it in such a way that someone would otherwise feel like they had to answer that question. Yes. So you don't want to ask questions that lead people to answer a particular way. You want to ask very fair, plain questions. Don't use jargon, technical terminology that's industry, terms of art, as they say. You want to use very, very natural language that anyone should be able to answer those questions, primarily within your demographic. Okay? So you want to be able to decide on what those questions are and figure them out. So you can ask, open-ended, closed-ended questions, multiple choice questions, and you can decide on whether or not questions are answered through many of these tools based on a prior or subsequent response. Okay, prior, using a conditional response, prior or conditional response. So we want to make sure that we're designing our questions correctly, and then we want to create the form or the survey that we're using whatever tool it is, and then we really need to test it. Okay, I like the 3x test rule. Okay, which means that you're going to test it, and then you're going to test it again. And that means you're going to, run through it and test it. You're going to then have somebody else run through it and test it. And then you're going to go back after you've made those edits from yours and that person's test, and then you're going to try it out again. Okay? And that usually means that once you've had the chance to do it yourself, you've had the chance for some test, sort of a focus group, maybe 2 or 3 people on staff or somebody else, that you know and trust can take that survey, that it all makes logical sense. And if it doesn't, making those corrections and then going back and doing that one more time means that you're mitigating a lot of the customer service related issues that happen with surveys. So one of the big issues with surveys is that people don't answer the questions because something technical went wrong or something didn't make sense. And so they drop out and they don't come back to the survey, and then you have partial data. Okay, so 3x test rule, really, you need to test every form or survey 3 times to make sure that it works. And then you're going to launch your form or survey. And when it comes to launching your form or survey, it really comes down to marketing it. Okay, so for some of you, you'll have an email marketing list, and you'll be able to go ahead and, send it out to that list, and those are the people you're going to ask. For others of you, you might want to use a tool like Surveymonkey's. Surveymonkey has a survey tool called Surveymonkey Audience and Contribute. And what Audience does is it gives you a pool of people that fit into, what you define as your target market, and those people can answer those surveys. You're paying Surveymonkey to get these answers from people, and you get some answers. So if you're in pre-startup and you don't know what your competition's information is, and you can't talk to your competition about information about your target market, well, then you can go to something like Surveymonkey, and I'm just giving you one example of a company that does this, and get answers from people that aren't your customers, but that can answer the questions in a way that gives you some really good business information. Okay, you can post this on your website. You can post it on social media. If you're doing, say, a crowdfunding campaign, you can actually infuse a survey into the process of every week by week, you're doing something to really get people excited about the crowdfunding campaign. Well, a survey is a really great way to get some information out of those people. It's marketing research. So look at ways in which you can launch the form or survey in such a way that it actually, sort of is a cascade effect of benefits for yourself and your customers. Okay, so launching your survey just means executing it and getting it out to the people. You figure out how you're going to do that, get creative with it, and really think about the long tail of it, right? So for example, if you have a standard form, so on my website I have a standard questionnaire that I like every potential client to fill out. So it's available on the website, and I know that lots of people are going to come at it. So it's a pretty broad questionnaire, and it's a fairly thorough questionnaire, right? I know what that's going to do for me. It's going to give me all the information I need to be able to help them best. So it's different than the contact form, because that's just for people to be able to make contact with me about short, quick things that they might need. So those forms are very different than, say, a survey that I send out once a year to customers to see how they're, how they're feeling about the business, how they're feeling about their own business, what's happening, and potentially ways in which we can help them, right? So it ends up being a marketing tool as much as it is a market research tool and a customer satisfaction tool. So it sort of blends between the three. But again, that goes back to the think with the end in mind, right? If you can get all of these compound benefits out of forms and surveys, then you can then start to craft the survey effectively on that side. Okay? Any questions so far about sort of forms and survey guidelines? I mean, this is I just wanted to cover the very broad terms there before I jumped into the tools themselves.
We don't have any questions so far, Ray.
Okay. If not, no questions?
Nope.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna hop over to the first tool, which is built into Google Drive, and so within Google Drive, you just go to drive.google.com and you log into your Google Apps account, and you can see in here that there is an option for a Google Forms, right? And so here, Google gives you the ability to create forms. I'm just going to let this load for a moment. And so here in front of you, you can see the pretty much the only tool I'm going to show you for creating forms because it's just the easiest one that's out there. There are a lot of other ones that are built into them, and I'll mention them when I get done with Google Drive Forms. But really, this is just a quick and easy way to create forms that you can embed on your website. So Google has created this product called Google Forms, and up in the top, you just start off with titling your form. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it a title. I'm going to just say contact form. Okay. And if you have multiple places where you might put different contact forms, you might want to actually title it where that particular form is. So you can say website, contact page, right? And so I've titled it contact form, website, contact page, and so I can create different forms for different places. All right, and just going across the top here, Google gives you the ability to do some things with it. You can do all kinds of things, including downloading the form data responses in a CSV file, basically a file that you can open in Excel and other kinds of things. You can copy the form, so you can create a base template form, and then use that as a template for future forms that you're creating. And you can always at any given time view the live form, so you can see what it looks like in a preview fashion. Okay. Then you can insert all kinds of things. I'll show you those in a little bit. You can accept responses, and you can also create scripts. So Google has something called the Google Apps script. Google Apps script is basically a type of JavaScript, very simplified JavaScript, which, believe you me, it is not difficult. You can learn it. And with that, you can actually create some of the conditionals that you otherwise wouldn't be able to create in here on the in the Google Forms tool that you can then create. Okay. Now, a couple things about Google Forms is that you can see that this form that I've created is a web-based tool, and it actually saves these tools, these responses, into Google Sheets. So just like Microsoft Excel, it creates the document in a format that's called, that's built into Google Drive called Google Sheets, and it's the equivalent. Okay, so you'll have all the data in a Google Sheet. One thing that people don't realize is that you can actually have Google Forms populate a sheet within another Google Sheets workbook. So you don't have to have it create it in its own. It will automatically create a Google Sheet where it puts that stuff. But you can actually say, no, I want you to put this into this specific Google Sheets workbook in this particular sheet. So you can actually have it populate wherever you want it to. You have to tell it to do that. Okay. As well, like any other Google Drive application, there are add-ons. And so what I'm loading right now is the add-on screen. And here it gives you some really amazing additional tools. One is the Forms notification add-on. So what that means is that this will set up email notifications so that you get notifications whenever you have a new form that's submitted, and it gives you a couple of new options that the built-in response notification within Google Forms doesn't give you. Okay, so that's pretty helpful. It gives you some. This one is called Foodoc. It's a template so that you get custom PDFs for each of the submissions. And one of my big problems with Google Forms is that the way in which it produces the information is pretty ugly. So this is actually really nice. Every time you get something submitted, it goes ahead and sends you this sort of nice looking custom PDF. This one allows you to duplicate pages. So if you create a Google form, you want to be able to duplicate that page, you can do that and just do that in a really easy, quick fashion. There are all kinds of other add-ons that are here. This one is a connection for Surveymonkey, which I'll show you in a little while. And so there you go. You can export your form to Surveymonkey. So you start in Google Forms, you create it, and you're like, oh, you know what? This really needs to be a Surveymonkey survey. You could just add this add-on and go ahead and push that data out there. There's even a bookkeeping tool, so you can use a Google form to record financial information for your accounting records. All kinds of really cool stuff. Okay, this one is a trigger for workflows. I mean, lots of good stuff. Okay, anyway, so know there are add-ons. You can search for them, look for them within the add-ons area of the page, and finally, help. So whenever it comes to Google Drive or any Google products, the support forums are really helpful to support articles as well as the forums. So if you come into contact with some kind of problem, just click on the forums help. It'll take you out there to the articles, search for the problem that you're looking for, and then if that doesn't solve it, then go to the forums that are within the support articles links and go ahead and ask for help regarding these things. And people, most likely someone's dealt with your issue before, so it's pretty simple. Okay, so we're in the edit questions view right now. You can see at the top here it gives us some basic settings. So I can require people to log in order to view this form. Okay, I can automatically collect respondents' usernames if they happen to be a part of my company, and of course I don't want that because it's going to be public, and I'm going to uncheck this one because it's going to also mean that the person would be able to connect with this outside of W3 Consulting. I can show a progress bar so that when as I'm filling out the form, along the bottom of the screen here, it will show a progress status. I can say only one person is allowed to respond per response, or only one response per person, I'm sorry. So that would require them to log in to track the data and so on and so forth. I'm going to say no on that. And you can also shuffle question order. So say you want to be able to not get someone to, preempt the flow of the questions. If all the questions are independent questions that don't require a flow from one to the next, you can go ahead and shuffle the order, and every time the page loads, the questions will be shuffled up. Okay, so just in case there's some kind of randomization that's required for your statistical analysis, you can go ahead and do that by shuffling the question order. Okay. So I'm going to uncheck all of those items and minimize this section just so it gets out of our way. Okay, we can also change the theme of our form. So the forms come with basic themes, right? So right now it's using this basic form. As you're seeing it on the screen is pretty much how it will view here on a web page. Okay, so this, basically from the toolbar here down is how it would look, and inside this bottom left-hand frame. Okay, so it'll just have the title of the form and the first question through the others, then have the Google Forms section at the bottom, and then you're done. Okay, so that's how it looks right now. Well, I can scroll through here and I can say, oh, you know what, I want this to look a little bit different. I want it to, maybe have a different theme. So you can go ahead and change the theme based on that. So the city skyline theme, and you can really get creative with these, and different options and that kind of thing. And there are ways in which you can create your own themes in here. I really haven't seen or a need for a client to do that, other than changing maybe the banner head or something like that, or just removing this altogether and putting their own banner head on their website so that it looks pretty much like theirs. I like the basic form because it allows you to be able to embed this on a website without any additional clutter. Okay, so the one thing I am going to do though in here is I'm going to go to the page background, and I'm going to say that I don't want the tile. I don't want anything in the background. I just want it to be clear. Okay, whoops, I want this to be clear. I say it's white, but that's fine. The form background you can see is also white. I'm going to say here that the font here is Roboto. I like the font size. I like the text to maybe be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to say that I want that medium. Help text as well, I'm going to leave that as small, not extra small. Again, these are all up to you. These are not, these are my preferences, not yours, and I think that's fine. That's fine. And you can see here I could choose a header image, and so if I choose another header image, that would also populate in that form and would show and display above the title of the form itself. Okay, so those are the theme options. I've gone ahead and edited those, and I'm going to go ahead and click back on Edit Questions, and now I'm back here at the Edit Questions page. All right, so I now have the ability to change what this says for every page. Okay, so I can change this page field, and I can also give a form description. So you can give some instructions for how people should complete the form. Okay, so you can go ahead and put instructions there. That's always helpful if you have something complex that you're trying to do. As you create more questions, you have a drop-down menu below. So they give you the standard first question, right? That's created here, and you can make questions required or not, and you can also shuffle them in particular option orders. Okay, but in here we're going to just create a basic question, question 1. You can put some help text to help that person understand what that question is about. In this particular case, it's a multiple choice question. Option 1, you just click on these, and you just keep clicking on the grayed out option 1 screen to keep adding additional options. Okay. If you want to give people an other option so that they can fill in their own option, you can go ahead and do that by clicking on the Add Other button that I just clicked on before. I'm going to delete it and see it there. It says Add Other, and then that adds the other. Now someone can enter in their own data. Okay, so if the option isn't available, they can go ahead and add an other, and then I can say this is a required question. All right, when I click done on that, now the question shows here in preview form, and I have the ability to go back into edit mode with it. I can duplicate this question so that if it's similar to a prior question, I can go ahead up similar to the next question I want to ask. I can go ahead and click on duplicate. I can also delete questions. Now when I hover over the question itself, I can go ahead and move it. So I'm going to create question 2 by drop down arrow on here, and you can see it gives me an option to create all kinds of other questions. So I can ask a text-based question, I can ask a paragraph text question, which is, again, both of those are open-ended questions. I can ask a multiple choice, checkbox, both of those, again, are closed-ended questions. Whoops, I accidentally pressed on that. And I can have them choose from a list. I can have them do a scale, on a scale of 1 to 10, scale of A to Z, how do you feel about me, that kind of thing. A grid. I can ask for date and times of things. So when is the best time to contact you, right? Date and time. I can also add in layout issues. So I can create multiple pages within this form. So I can create a section. So if I have multiple sections to the form, I just put in a new section header, break that form up, move things around, and now I have a nice flow to the form. I can also put page breaks. So someone has to fill out the first page, click on next, they're taken to the next page of the form, fill that out, and if there's multiple pages, they keep clicking next until they get to the final page, and then they can go ahead and click on the submit button. You can add images and videos. So say that your form really requires some introduction. So it's maybe perhaps a sales contact form where you want to introduce yourself as the business owner and what it is that you do and how you do it, and that you're really excited to talk to them. And this is how they should fill out the form in order to be able to make first contact with you. Okay, so you could put a video in there and really get people engaged. Images, videos, all that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm just going to put in a basic text question here. I'm going to call it question 2. And a little bit of help text, which is not required. I just put it in there for fun. I'm also making this a required question, clicking on done, and now you can see that if I decide that question 1 really should come after question 2, I can go ahead and move that down below question 2, and there it is. Okay, so question 1 is now below question 2, and we can just swap it back at any time if and when you decide that belongs in another place. Okay, so you can drag and drop and all that other fun stuff. All right, so I'm not going to get too much deeper into this. I want to show you the other tools, but you can see it's a really competent form, really competent tool. We can go in here and we can say that you can show a link to submit another response, but if you only want one response per person, you can uncheck that. And on the confirmation page, you can go ahead and put your own message. So this is a great opportunity to obviously market your business, and so you can give other information, tell them where they can download a free white paper or a free resource from your website, tell them how they can sign up for your email newsletter, whatever it is that you want them to do. Thank them obviously for completing the form, for contacting you, or whatever it might be, but engaging them further in the process. Maybe you tell them to check out your Twitter or your Facebook page or something like that so they can go check out what you're doing on social media. Utilize this space because it's a space that they're going to see. It's going to pop up on their screen and they're going to be able to interact with it, okay? So make sure that you're utilizing the confirmation page. Okay, so you can show a link. You can publish and show a public link to the form results. This is not recommended unless it's a public survey, but if it's a contact form or something else like that, make sure this is not checked because that will actually make all of those people's responses public, and you don't want that. Okay, you can allow responders to come back and edit their responses after submitting their posts, submitting their responses to the contact form or whatever form you're creating, and so you can do that. All right, so this is really for contact forms, but you can do surveys. Like I said, you'd have to learn a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of the Google Apps script in order to be able to do conditionals, but you could ask a lot of questions in a survey right here within Google Forms. Okay, so you can create a form or survey right here within it. All right. Now note that as I was making these changes, since it's Google Drive, it's live saving the document in front of us. Okay, so the documents have all been saved. They're all set up. Everything's ready to go. So I can click on live, view live form, and here it is. So it opens up in a new tab or a new window depending upon your browser settings, and this is the form. Okay, so I can send people this link, and I can send it out by email. I can do all kinds of things with the link by getting it out there on social media and so on and so forth. But this is the way it will look, and people will be able to fill it out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just answer these questions so you can see what happens. So I went ahead and answered question 1 and 2. I clicked on submit, and I see the form response page, right? And so here's where you put your additional marketing materials and so on and so forth for, why not? Take advantage of it, right? And now we're going to head back over to the contact form, and if I click on view responses, you can see here that the responses, it says, oh my gosh, we have new responses. Would you like to create a new spreadsheet, or would you like to put it in a new sheet in an existing spreadsheet workbook, basically putting it in a current Google Sheets workbook? All right, and so I can tell it which I want it to do. All right, now you can actually also keep responses only in Forms, right, and not create the additional spreadsheet. I really wouldn't recommend that if you intend on keeping that data long term and being able to use it some way, shape, or form. Okay, so I'm going to say keep the create a new spreadsheet, and we'll go ahead and click on create. And note that now Google Drive is going to open up a new Google Sheets document, and it will show the responses. Still working. Okay, great. So as you can see here, what it's done is it's created a new Google Sheets workbook. You can see that it timestamps, so it's always going to put in column A a timestamp, and you see that it tells the exact date and time in which I just submitted it. It will tell me which option I chose, what questions I answered and how I answered them, and if I asked for my name and email address or other kinds of information, it can go ahead and do that as well. Okay, but it's very basic. It's not tracking my IP address, so it didn't capture those that the other tools will do. It doesn't do some of those things that you would otherwise have it doing. So that's where it captures the information. You can copy, you can tabulate and analyze the survey results all within the tool here. So really, really cool. Okay, I'm belaboring the subject, so I want to move on. One other thing is that you're able to take the form itself and embed it. So you can see here, you can click on embed. So if you go to File and then down to Embed from the Google Forms editor page, I keep saying contact form, but I really mean just the Google Forms editor, you get a little bit of iframe code. Okay, when you click on it, it gives you the option of Control-C if you're on a Windows, Command-C if you're on a Mac, and now you can paste that into the HTML side of any website, and it will just populate and show that page inside your own website. Okay, super easy. All right, if you want to make sure that you can just adjust it for fitting properly in your website, you just need to go ahead and fix the width and height in pixels to match the size of the form and the body frame of the website in which you're putting it in. Okay, so you want to make sure that those match. It's very easy to do. You can just talk to your web developer or your web hosting company, whoever helped you set up your website, and they can give you some of the criteria you need for making sure that this fits and looks good on your website. Okay, but that's pretty much it. You just get this little bit of code, throw it up on your website, and you're good to go. Okay, and it looks like a form created on your website. Cool. People can submit either question and answer, contact form, surveys, all that fun stuff. Okay, so that's Google Drive Forms, and let's hop over to the next tool I wanted to show you, which is called Surveymonkey. Okay, I'm not going to have time to talk about all of these tools, so I just wanted to go over Forms and Surveymonkey today. There is like I said before, the Survey Gizmo, iContact has an email, in a surveying tool, and there are other tools out there like PollDaddy. So you can check out all of those. Okay, PollDaddy is owned by WordPress. WordPress has lots of different plugins that you can put in there, like Ninja Forms and Contact Form 7 and all those other plugins. But I just wanted to show you two basic tools so that we can get you jump started if you're not. So those are those tools. Let me go into SurveyMonkey and show you sort of how it works. Okay, I'm going to try and sign in and see if I remember my. There it is. It remembered me, which is always good. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. You're going to create an account on SurveyMonkey, which is free, to start, and so then we're going to go ahead up to the top right-hand corner once you've gotten everything set up, and you're going to click on Create Survey. So we're going to just go ahead and create survey, the green button in the top right-hand corner, and you can see here in the basic account, right? Basically gives you, the ability to create a survey, and that's all I wanted to show you. So I'm just creating it so you can see it in this test account. And so I'm going to call the survey, Beyond Google Survey. All right, and so I can click on select a category, and you can see here that all of these are options of categories of types of surveys. So maybe I just want customer feedback. Note down here it says events, and I wanted to pause just for a moment that if you're doing an event, sometimes using the internal tool is better than manifesting a whole other survey outside of it. Let me give you an example, two examples actually. One is that for my company, we use Eventbrite. Eventbrite is an event registration and management tool, and it just does the job that we need it to do, right? So we use Eventbrite for all of those things, eventbrite.com, and Eventbrite itself has its own internal form for registering, but it also can ask questions of the registrants. So as someone's registering, I can actually go ahead and have those questions answered while they're filling out the form and registering for a workshop or seminar or whatever it might be. So it can actually be really useful to collect that information because it's just one little additional thing they have to answer in the process of filling out the registration, and so people are less frustrated with having to have a whole other survey to be able to answer those questions. Or sometimes at the end of the event registration, when they get their email, at the end I can ask the question through Eventbrite and it'll say, hey, would you like to answer this one question for us? Just respond to this email, this registration email, and let us know what you think about X. Or what would you like to get out of this event? What's the one big burning question you have that would be great for us to be able to answer to make this event worth your while? So sometimes, surveys and getting business data, marketing research from your customer base can just be as simple as using the internal tool. With the Virginia SBDC, you can see that there is the survey function, the feedback function, is actually built into our webinar software. So when Tracy closes out today, she's going to let you know that there's a survey to fill out. It's going to communicate that information to you, and it's all built right here into it. It's caked into the software. So sometimes surveys can be really quick and seamless if you use the tool that already has it built into it. All right, so I'm showing you Google Forms and I'm showing you SurveyMonkey as two options among many, but just remember that if you have a tool that has that functionality built in, sometimes it's just easier for the customer or the person you're collecting that data from, because it's just a part of the process, part of the workflow. Makes it less frustrating. Okay. All right, so I'm going to click here, customer feedback, and I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. And you can see here now that they give you a whole bunch of other things, and they actually have a new design layout that they're scaling out. But I'm not going to show you that one. I'm going to use the well, maybe let's try it. This is the Custer's last words, right? Let's try the new. Okay, it's fine. It was a little buggy the last time I tested it out. So here goes the new design layout, and I'm going to go ahead and say try it now, and here we are. Okay, so as you can see here, it gives us the four-tab view. The four-tab view is summary here, and it's going to try and take me through the survey again here in this account. All right. So the summary view, we have the design survey view. We have collect responses view, which allows us to market our survey to folks, and then the Analyze Results tab. Okay, so this again, designing, collecting data, and analyzing those results. Okay, so those 3 tabs, but we have a summary view here as well. Okay, so on page 1, we have the builder side here, which again, you would just drag and drop onto the page the various types of questions that we would want, right? So it's just a template for the question. So we can add a logo to our item. Again, you have to upgrade the account in order to add a logo. You can, of course, change the name of the survey just by clicking on it. And again, here you can see you can left the line, you can bold, you can do all kinds of different things with that particular survey item. We can add a page title. So I could just say, survey page 1. And I can add a description here again. If that person needs some more information about how to answer, questions, responses, whatever they might be, you can give that data there. And then I could say, okay, well, I want to ask a multiple choice question. Okay. The really cool part about SurveyMonkey is when you actually hover over any one of these, it gives you a little bit more, information about what those types of questions are. Okay, so it gives you a little bit of information about them. So I can see here a single text box gives these people an ability to add some text, but not really a multi-line long answer. It's really a short or numerical response, right? Whereas a multiple text box, is going to give you multiple text boxes where people can fill in, top 3 tier of this or those kinds of things. A comment box is obviously where people can answer open-ended feedback that you might be asking, okay? All kinds of really cool stuff. And they give you lots of options. I mean, the survey options are pretty great. And they have A/B testing, which means that you can, respondents are given 2 or more different images, and they can provide, those comparisons for you. So it's really cool. You can do text A/B stuff. So really, really good stuff here that SurveyMonkey has built into it. Again, you can do the same thing as with Google Forms, where you can have section breaks here. You can have page breaks, so it's a multiple page survey or multiple page form. You can do a lot of those kinds of things here in SurveyMonkey as well. Okay. They also give you the question bank, and so the question bank here says, oh, you know what? These are the typical questions that people ask in a customer feedback survey, right? And so all you have to do now is just click on Add, and oh, I didn't finish this one. I'm going to cancel this. All right, so I'm just going to click on Add, and it goes ahead and answers. See, it just automatically pre-populated a multiple choice first question. It asked the question, and it gave me the regular responses that would normally be given within the survey. So it's really, really quick and easy for you to be able to do this stuff if you go into the question bank. Okay, so you can say, oh, you know what? How likely is it that you're going to recommend my company? And boom, the question's now in there, and it's all set to go. So you can, decide on a brand, product, or service, and fill in the blank, and it's ready to go. Okay, so really, really some great functions here. Something that SurveyMonkey has built in to it that Google Forms doesn't out the gate. Like I said, if you wanted conditional information, what they call logic, you would have to know a little bit of the Google Apps script to be able to make some of that logic happen. It's a little complicated. You could do it, but it's complicated. And so here, SurveyMonkey has some of those things. Again, you would need to go ahead and make sure that you have the upgraded account. You'd have to have the premium account with SurveyMonkey in order for you to be able to do this. But you can see here you have all these options in order to be able to have a quota. Basically, how many questions need to be asked here to make this a statistically significant amount of data for you to be able to make that assessment about the business. You can customize variables. You can randomize questions and randomize pages. You can do all kinds of things based on how people are responding. Okay. In the options section, you can see here that you can turn on and off the survey title. You can add a logo. You can have an exit link. So if somebody just basically says, I'm done with the survey, I don't want to finish it, they can go ahead and just click on the exit link. You can turn the progress bar on and off, just like with Google Forms, where it shows you where you are in the status of completing the survey. You can turn off page titles so that you can have a survey title but without the page titles, or you can turn off the survey title and have page titles so people know where they are. And that's usually helpful. You can number the questions. You can put an asterisk next to the required questions as opposed to not. And again, with a premium account, you can have a footer. You can also change the language, the native language of the survey. So you can, if you have a language in a language other than English, you can go ahead and change that to the language of the people who are going to be answering it. Okay, just like with Google Forms, again, you have the ability to have themes. So themes for here in and within Google Forms is that they give you many more color theme options, but they don't really give you a lot of the types of sort of visual aesthetic layout that Google Forms does. So they don't give you a lot of that stuff, but you can customize it here and put in images and put in those kinds of things. It's a little more difficult. So they really want you to just have a more standard view when it comes to these. So you just pick the color theme and then have it laid out like it is. So that's just the way they've decided to do it. All right. So from the builder and the question bank, you can pretty much do 95% of what you plan on doing as it relates to building your survey. And then once you have it built, you're going to go into the preview and test arena. Okay, so preview and test here is, as I said, you're going to think about your questions, think about how, think about your goals and objectives. You're going to think about your questions. What are the questions going to be used for? Decide on what the questions are, and then you get to this, after 2 more points, you're at the test, and test again phase, right? And we want to be able to test this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and it tells us that this will collect data, but it's not going to be available. But you can see here, I can choose the options, and I can say, okay, and I'm done. Okay, so now that's the end of the preview. I've seen how it works. Now I'm going to say, you know what? I should go send this survey off to someone so that they can go ahead and look at it. Okay, so then I would go ahead and either give them this survey link, or I would give get feedback some other way. So I could say, hey, let me click on the get feedback button, and it's loading my email now. And so what it's going to do is it's going to give me a link to that survey preview, and now it's going to give me an ability to look at the survey. Okay, so you can see what I did. I clicked on the get feedback button in the preview version of the survey, and it opened up my email, which happens to be in Google Apps Mail, and so it gave a little template email, and it gives a link to the survey preview, which is the link that was up here that I copied and said I could send in an email, but it's basically pre-populated here. And now I can say to the person, whomever I want to look at it, hey, can you go look at this survey and see if it's any good? Okay, if there's any problems, let me know what's going on, and I'll go ahead and do them. Okay, so I'm going to discard this. And once I'm there, I can also print it to look at it in print form. This frequently happens if you have a post-event survey where people are in person and you email them the survey subsequent to that event, right? So you email them the survey subsequent to the event, and you say, hey, will you fill this out? But you print out a couple of copies for those people who are at the event who might want to fill it out live right there in front of you. Okay, so you have those options. Okay, I'm going to click on next, and now you can see here that we are now in the Collect Responses tab, and the Collect Responses tab means that I'm capable of going ahead and doing a couple of things. I can name the organization that I'm sending this from. I'll say W Consulting and save, and so now the name of the organization is saved here. And I can also customize the survey link, right? So again, going back to a little bit of marketing, right? This is just HHLHV5K means nothing. Well, if I have a premium account, just create a premium account for yourself, and you can go ahead in here and you can actually change this to something that's maybe your company name, with a little bit of information about what the survey actually is. Okay, so it helps people sort of understand those things. Now, on this screen is where you can actually, let people know whether you can have one response per computer. Can people edit responses on the thank you page, and on the thank you page here, for the most part, is where again, premium issue, you can go ahead and put in whatever you'd like to regarding customizing that thank you page after someone completes the survey. Okay, there are some advanced options this is about collecting IP addresses and some other things, not particularly of any concern to most people, but you can check out the advanced options if you need to, okay? You can see here there are lots of ways in which you can send responses, send surveys for responses within them. Here you can email. As I talked about earlier, there is this idea about buying responses, and this is using the Surveymonkey contribute tool, or audience tool, I'm sorry. An audience basically goes out to people within SurveyMonkey's network who fit into the demographic that you choose. They answer, and you pay SurveyMonkey for those answers, and you get some really good business information. Okay, cool stuff there. You can post it to Facebook. You can post it on your website by embedding the survey, just like Google Forms. You can manually enter data. So if you're doing this as a phone survey, you can create the SurveyMonkey form, and then you can manually enter the data yourself. If you have a MailChimp account, you can go ahead and send it out to your email marketing lists. Okay, so lots of ways in which you can do that. And then we get to the Analyze Results tab. I'm going to talk about what you do with managing the data that you collect, but you can see here that on the Analyze Results tab, you have a whole bunch of ways to look at the data and so on and so forth, okay? So I'm not going to get into this because it's far more complicated than what I plan to cover today in our last couple of minutes, but I'm going to jump back over to the slide deck, and again, if there's any questions, feel free to ping us in the question panel, and Tracy will catch me mid-breath so that I can answer your questions. Okay, so that was just a quick overview of the two tools, both Google Drive Forms as well as SurveyMonkey. You can see the tools are just really basic and easy. You follow instructions, and you can pretty much create those survey or forms in just a couple minutes, okay? Designing the questions and designing, to figuring out what you want it to look like on the front end, that's going to take you time. But the actual creation of the surveys themselves really don't take that much time. All right, so let's talk about what happens once you've collected that data, once you've gotten to the analysis of the results phase of things. Okay, so first and foremost, you need to review the quality of the data that you're collecting, okay? This comes into picking the right people to answer the questions, but also in the reality of it that people sometimes receive surveys. If they're not incentivized to be thorough, they will be thorough. Sometimes if they're not incentivized, they will be thorough because they're frustrated by something or they're really passionate about something. So it really just depends. So you have to look at the data. What we do is we typically randomly select responses, and it depends on how large the data set is, right? So you could say we're going to pick 2% of the responses, random select those, and see whether or not there's enough quality to those responses that the survey is usable. Okay, depends on the function. I say 2% is a pretty good randomization. Again, if you have 10 responses, 2 out of them is what you're going to be picking. It's not a big deal. If you have 100,000 responses, then you're going to need someone to be working with you to create that survey and to manage it and so on and so forth to make sure the quality's there. But that is the first thing you want to do, right? You need to be able to make sure that the quality of the data is high so that you're making good decisions. You're founding it on good information. Next, you need to start defining the business questions that you want to be answered. So if this was a very broad survey, say like a customer satisfaction survey where we asked lots of questions about all different kinds of areas of your business, well, each time you look at the data, you're going to have to ask a business question, right? Are they happy with, this particular product line? Are these particular people happy with this particular? Are these particular people happy with the business in general? How much do the people who give us most of our business, how happy are they with us? Or how happy are they with particular product lines, right? So we want to ask the right business question. And then we want to look at the tool. Now, every tool is different, so you can really, you're going to have to figure out which tool you're using and do all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, if it's a simple survey, straightforward set of one or multiple criteria or open-ended questions, you want to look at those question summaries and the individual responses, and if there are any open-ended responses. Okay, so you want to say, okay, for the individual responses, you're able to filter those responses down to the exact answers you want. If they're open-ended questions, then you likely want to take some sampling, if there are a lot of them, or you want to read all the open-ended answers. right? So you either decide, you're going to read 50% of the answers, you're going to read 100% of the answers, you're going to read 20% of the answers. It just depends on the volume and the amount of time you have to be reading all of them, okay? But you filter, based on the criteria that you're looking for to answer the business question, okay? So don't go fiddling around with the survey just to know stuff. With the survey results. One of the biggest things about productivity when it comes to your business is this: you have to narrow your focus down to the thing you need, right? So you may collect an annual survey and get lots and lots of information, but you have to ask the right questions to be able to get the right answers. So that survey is useless to you until you know what question you're trying to answer. So don't go mulling over the survey endlessly for no apparent reason. Go to it with a focus and you'll get a result. If you don't go to it with a focus, then you'll just end up, looking at the data over and over again. Your eyes will glaze and you'll not really get much out of it. Okay? So I see the most success out of surveys with clients when they have a specific defined business question and they doggedly go after finding the right set of criteria that's going to uncover that answer for them. All right. Then you want to share that data among your trusted, sort of your inner circle, if you have an advisory board or an inner circle or people that you really want to do that with, because once you've looked at this filtered result, which in SurveyMonkey you can create with charts, if you're in Google Forms you can download that data, you can download the data in SurveyMonkey also, you could put it into Excel, create a pivot table, you could put it into Google Sheets answers within Google Forms, you can create pivot tables and charts from those as well. So you could do lots of things to visualize the data to make it much more appealing to you to understand. And once it's in either a chart, a graph, some kind of visual layout, then you can share that data with your inner circle, with the people you trust, and say, hey, look at this data. Here goes the business question. What do you think? Okay. And many times you're going to get different responses. Different people are going to have different ideas. Maybe that will create new ideas about things that you might want to do with the business, new ways you might want to overcome that particular business challenge, okay? And then finally, you want to export that data, okay, to other tools where needed, but more importantly, the concept of exporting this data is really all about saving that data for the future. Because, as I said, you want to be able to start to forecast over time what information you're collecting and how that's going to be done. We already talked about this in when we talked about the business intelligence big data webinar that we did, where we have the archive of that. So when we talked about big data, we talked about being able to take this kind of data that you're collecting and to be able to cross-section it and look at it in different flavors to be able to make better business decisions. So you go back to that archive webinar to really understand what you would do with this data once you started to collect it on a regular basis. But you really do need to take this data out of, say, SurveyMonkey or even Google Forms and downloading it in some other format, like an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, because SurveyMonkey could go away, or you could lose the password to your account and not get back into it for some unapparent reason at the time. So you really want to be able to get that data out, put it into a centralized spot, and just know that you collected that data. Okay, I say that about Google Analytics. I say that about Facebook Insights. Any of those places where big data is being collected for you, especially in forms and surveys. Get the data out of the tool and put them all into one repository, because then you can back that data up in that space and know that you have it for future needs. Okay. So with that, Tracy, are there any questions that that are out there, burning questions before we close out?
There are no burning questions at this point.
I just answered everybody's questions.
You did answer everybody's questions. But I did want to clarify that, or with the survey that we do put out, I do use SurveyMonkey for that. I don't use the internal tool for GoToWebinar, solely because for our company, that's where all surveys are housed. So for me to use multiple tools would mean that I have to go to different places to look for information. So.
Yeah, see, and that's another one of the things. Consolidating the tools is really important, and so you've actually integrated SurveyMonkey into the webinar software, which is fantastic. So that's another way that you can do it. It's just that if you're not doing surveys outside, if you're not doing lots of surveys outside of this is the only thing you want to be using, having two tools may be the inverse of what you're trying to do, Tracy, and I think that's really
Absolutely.
smart. Yeah, I think it's really smart that you're using SurveyMonkey elsewhere, consolidated all into SurveyMonkey. Really, really great.
Great. Well, we don't have any other questions. Please feel free to type those into the question windows, but I'm going to go ahead and close out the survey. I did just push the survey for today's webinar out in the chat window. I hope that you will help us to evaluate today's program by completing the survey. If you don't do it today, you'll get it again tomorrow as part of the follow-up to this survey. Thank you for participating. Today's webinar was recorded and will be posted on the Virginia SBDC's website under live webinars and recordings. See you on July 9th for Writing Well for Google and Humans. Thanks again, Ray, for the webinar.
Thank you.